Hello and welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us for another episode of Anewgo of New Home Sales. I'm your host, Anya Chrisanthon, and joining me today is Anewgo CEO, Zhang and OpenHouse AI CEO, Will Zhang.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much for being here. And today, Zhang Li is going to be not in his normal capacity as my co-host, but actually he's going to be on the other side being interviewed by me. So for today's episode, we wanted to take a slightly different approach to technology. Obviously, we're still going to be talking about technology, but we really wanted to dive into the men behind the vision, behind AI. It's been such a hot topic over the last couple of years. We can't go anywhere without hearing about AI. But we wanted to take a bit more of a human approach and get to know the two visionary CEOs who are really driving home building industry with AI. So, Will, for those listeners who may not know who you are, give us a quick introduction of what led you into home building industry and what does your company do now? What problems do you solve for home builders?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me today. And my name is Will. I'm the CEO of OpenHouse AI. OpenHouse aspires to be the easiest technology company to work with in the home building industry. What we do is we focus on helping production home builders to make very accurate demand prediction in their local market in each of the division that they operate in. So yeah, in a nutshell, that's what we do. What we help home builders to us for a few challenges that they face. We all know that it's very difficult to predict the market or what the future lies. For very experienced sales leader, they might be able to say, what would be my sales be in 30 days? They can extrapolate for 45 days. But with our technology, we're able to make very accurate prediction 90 days into the future. And a lot of people know like a lot of problems actually can be solved with such insight. We can go into more detail as we go further.
So, not to put you on the spot, but I'm sure you see a lot of sales predictions for a lot of home builders out there. So, tell us what's coming up in the next 30 to 90 days. Can we expect the sales to be up overall, down? How does it looking?
So, specific to that, it's actually very interesting. What we learned after a few years operation, we actually operate in very different a broad range of geo market. I can tell you actually every market is different, and the prediction we make is specific for the decision that they have made. How do that affect their own demand in the specific operating market? So we of course actually know the market trend. If you think about economists and the joint consulting alike, they are able to give us the macro view, but our prediction specific to each geo market is actually quite different. It's very hard to blanket make a statement. The interesting thing we see is actually we certainly see the market starting to become more exciting, optimistic in the very short term.
Well, it's good to hear. Zhang Li, now it's your turn. I think most of our listeners know who you are, but just give us a quick refresher of what is it that we do here at Anewgo.
Before I talk about myself, I just want to give a shout out, kudos to Will. You are the man behind the machine, and you had talked about AI. I think we first talked in 2021. We were the only ones really talking about AI in this industry. So talk about predictive AI. You were predicting AI before AI became popular, and I've been on your coattails. So in one sense here at Anewgo, we're following the same pursuit. We really want to improve that customer journey and that customer experience. And we believe that AI could be a critical part of that. Not only is it an assistant for the consumer so that they can find design experience and even buy online, also for the builder to actually understand their customers, communicate with them better, provide a better customer experience as they go down this traditionally painful customer journey.
All right. So obviously AI again is a hot topic of conversation right now. And when you think about AI, it's a cutting edge technology. When you think about home building, maybe not so much. So how did your path lead you to this intersection of AI and home building? Because it almost seems like the two very different sides of equation. So Will, let's start with you.
Yeah, for sure. I have been working in machine learning my entire career. So I actually grew up in a family of academia. My father is a scientist. so was heavily influenced by his upbringing. So because of his work, I actually get exposed to the supercomputer in a very young age. So I remember I actually played with this punch card and punch tape when I was growing up. Didn't know what is that about. Naturally lead to my path to computer science and mathematics, and was very felt fortunate to work and live in France for 6 years, where I basically my education led me to engineering degree because unlike my father, I want to build something concrete. I want to make a tangible impact to the world. So I decided to become an engineer. When I first started my career, was very fortunate. Right around early 2000s was right after the internet bubble. I think John
I was there.
also-
I
he was there
survived
too.
it.
Yeah, I was actually new to my career at the time, but we're very fortunate to be able to experience a few projects that we actually use in machine learning. At the time, we can't even say AI because you can't find a job. It's AI is the taboo, the winter of AI. But I was involved in a few projects like using machine learning to balance the power grid for Southern Paris, or involving the upgrading the mobile internet infrastructure for Orange Mobile, and actually involving first iPhone release across 6 European countries as well. And I was get to see how technology and AI was able to impact at huge scale, affecting many people in a positive way. And that got me very excited. Now, how is that related? Home building was very interesting too. I first get to understand and get to interested about this industry in 2008. I was working for a hedge fund. The hedge fund was not exposed to the subprime, one of the largest hedge funds in Germany, but the financial crisis actually led me to curious about what's going on in the housing market. And when I moved to North America in 2009, I grew increasingly curious and interested about this industry. Was very fortunate to get to know a few inspiring entrepreneurs in 2018. They are home builders. They're home builders in our market. And I actually get to appreciate how the complexity of this industry, but also how fulfilling it is. If you think about it, it's actually building shelters, probably one of the oldest industry that might even exist before we are recording history, right? So if we are able to bring the most cutting edge technology to a very meaningful industry to provide shelter and housing for people, it's a tall challenge, but it's certainly super meaningful for my career. So that's basically what inspired me to quit my job and start the business.
We're really happy that you did. So, John Lee, your turn. I know you had your time in Silicon Valley, and after that, you decided to try your hand at home building. So, why home building?
First of all, I can't come at this from the other side. I had purchased my first new construction home back in the early 90s from a custom home builder. And then my second new construction home was from Pulte up in Michigan. And so that gave me an experience of how that customer journey was like. And I also had got my real estate license. So I've always been interested in real estate. My dad was a real estate agent as well. But then in late 90s, I went to Silicon Valley. And then I got exposed to all the amazing technology there. My company used to compete against this little company called Google. And I could see how it's really changed the whole online search and shopping experience. So fast forward, come back here to North Carolina. And after the .com crash, and I saw new construction was booming here. And I thought this is a perfect industry to apply new technology. But the one thing I learned was that new construction homes, well, I didn't learn, but it was very obvious that they don't exist. So it had to start out as a rendering company. So we had to create visualizations of houses. That's what was rendering house. But I always knew that content was just a starting point. It wasn't the end point, but it's the start of the customer journey to attract the audience. But now you can engage them. So that's why we wanted to create apps to allow people to interactively design it, price it, and even buy it online. That's how it exposed all this. The reason I got into AI recently is we've been building for AI because the world has been building for AI for over a decade. It's just come out in the last couple of years. But if you think about the new home shopping experience, the customer journey, buyers need real estate agents, they need online sales consultants, they need salespeople to help them through this complex shopping experience. But consumers are increasingly doing more and more online. So they're not actually meeting with these people all the time, 24/7. So an AI personal assistant is a natural evolution and a natural fit to facilitate that shopping desire online. The only thing I didn't expect AI to happen so quickly, so abruptly, so pervasively across many different. There's a new AI coming out every month, it seems, and every AI has innovated with amazing new features and technology. So I think the pace of acceleration is increasing. If anything, I'm glad we started when we did, Will, because if we started now, we wouldn't make it.
So, from what I hear, a lot of experts are saying we're like on the very beginning stages of AI, right? Like it's a ladder, and we're, I think, according to OpenAI, we're on step one or just
Right.
about
1 out of 5.
five. So, we still have some levels to climb. So, in your opinion, why should home builders pay attention to AI right now? How can they utilize AI in their business today? Because again, it's a hot topic of conversation, and we know down the road it's going to be probably as pervasive as an internet, right? But today, how can home builders take advantage of AI?
Will, look, maybe we could start from the top of the funnel and
Yeah.
work down to where I think you're really awesome at. At the
Nice.
top of the funnel is marketing, right? So marketing is about attracting that audience and then interacting with that audience, connecting with that audience. I think the two major innovations with AI, which has been around with machine learning for a long time, is generative AI and conversational AI, which is analogous to content and channels. Channels is the way you communicate. Generative AI enables the marketing person to now create amazing textual and visual content on the fly. You don't have to go through artists and you don't have to buy stock photos. You can really generate and then regenerate all you want. The conversational piece is where now you can actually take that generative content that's been personally generated and now communicate in a conversational, natural way with the consumer personally, whether it's through voice, through text, or through visual communications. So I think that part is going to be transformative to the customer shopping experience. And as we move down the funnel, I think this is where Will's taking all that data about the customer's behavior and insights and what's selling and what's not selling to make those amazing predictions to continue that buying cycle.
So in our view, there's a lot of AI startups popping up every single day.
Mhm.
As getting very noisy, also making AI sound very complicated. But actually, AI doesn't need to be that complicated. So I think home builder come to us for one of the three reasons. And we believe these are biggest opportunity for home building industry as well. Number one is we all know very difficult to predict the market. Now, if we are only have very near term, like a 30-day visibility into the future, that make us very difficult to make good decision in a few areas. One, in terms of pricing, then home builder has to price for based on cost rather than price for profit. When it comes to making decision on releasing to the market, it's very constrained based rather than pace it according to the market demand. Also operationally, if you have fluctuation of the demand, that also actually making a lot of challenge in operations. So imagine if you are able to be very accurately predict the market, you can price for profit and you can actually release your schedule according to how to optimize your operation process instead of whatever constraint you just got unlocked. So that's one problem we solve. Most builder we work with, we don't need to tell them what they can do with such foresight. And our most successful partners were able to, we're talking about like $500 million business, was able to, some of them even increase their gross margin by 1 to 1.5%. And that's very significant. If you think about that, that's one problem space that we think AI really make a huge impact to the production home builder in their business and operations. And the second area that we actually identify what AI help is we notice that in this industry, there's no high intent sales funnel. What I mean by that is if you think about a lot of lead that we pull into the marketing budget and digital ad purchase, we get some good leads, some tie kickers or low intent. How do we sift through them and actually identify the high intent buyer? So what we found is a huge opportunity to digitize the sales operation and basically lower further down in the funnel. When you generate all these amazing leads, but the customer, their buying intent will change as they progress through the journey. And if we are able to create a high intent funnel that basically allowing to guide the consumer who are ready and able to buy, we can accelerate the sales velocity and actually creating a more curated experience for this customer. I think that's actually very good for our customer, will lead to more sales. And more importantly, actually helping the sales staff to focus on the ready and able buyer, and rather than spending all the time to figure out who is the tire kicker. And the third opportunity that we see AI can help is event flow construction. A lot of people would know event flow is the holy grail from operation standpoint, but it's very challenging and difficult to maintain the event flow because you have all the volatility and uncertainty in the pre-construction phase to construction phase. A lot of time, what we actually recognize is that the biggest uncertainty is actually market. Because actually, when you think about pre-construction and construction, there's a lot of things that is actually within the home builder's control or direct influence. But the market is actually a lot of time we are at the mercy of the market. So if we are able to use an AI to actually better plan, and the 5 steps you mentioned in OpenAI, right? So step 1 is actually using understanding of language and need, all the way to reasoning capability, to autonomous agent to be able to take certain action on behalf of human on the RAM that actually under control by human. I think that will make huge impact to basically improve operation efficiency and even construction. That ultimately will lead to a more efficient home building process and lower cost of construction.
Yeah, I know they've been using AI to predict financial markets for quite a while. I remember some of my dad's friends were in that industry early on, and it was like fascinating to think how you can predict which stocks are going to go up and down. So I imagine it's like that, only you have so many other variables in there. So
Absolutely.
it's crazy.
Actually, I work in hedge funds, so I know exactly how those math work. Basically, what we do is actually taking those proven mathematical model and the strategy to the home building industry.
Is that what kind of inspired you? I know earlier you mentioned when you met a couple of entrepreneurs who were in home building industry. I'm curious to know, are there any other role models that you look to, whether they're in the building industry, outside of building industries? Who do you look to?
For myself, certainly my father had a huge influence how I grew up. He is a scientist in quantum chemistry. So thanks to him, I actually get to think in scientific. So because of my father's influence, I would very commonly apply scientific process to think in my reasoning as well. And as my life stage progressed, I look up to different people to understand the gap in my life and then how do I improve. At this stage of my life, I aspire to live as much as possible to the teaching of Jesus Christ.
I'm the same way here too.
Thanks, DP. Tell us, is John Lee
But we don't want to preach all day long here, but it's good that we do have a purpose, and maybe it's a broader purpose even than our current jobs. But for me, I grew up in the era of Steve Jobs. Speaking of Jobs, Steve Jobs and Jeff Bezos, and I've seen what they've done, and I've seen what they've accomplished, and I see that it's still working. And one of the things with Steve Jobs is the whole idea of think different. So it really is thinking outside the box, because I think the one thing with builders here, I always say they're slow to innovate, but they're quick to copy. So they really just think within the box of their neighbors. And one of the points there is that it is about timing and positioning. And that's what I always try to do here, is trying to find to be at the right place at the right time with the right product. The one thing with both Steve Jobs and Bezos is really focus on the customer experience and the design and address the pain points and really build out that ecosystem. And that's what we're trying to do here, is for the home buying, the pain point is the entire customer journey. So for us to succeed and for AI to succeed using us is to really look at the whole customer journey and where are the buyers falling off, where they're frustrated, where are the sellers not optimizing their resources and not being able to meet the customers. I think their guidance and their strategies echoes still today.
So, as both of you think about the future of AI, how do you think it's going to shape not only home building industry, but also the way we live in our homes? Because I can imagine the Jetson lifestyle, right? Like the flying cars, all that stuff. Is that all coming, or is it still just a TV show?
I think in the future, the AI will be like your personal butler, not just your personal assistant for shopping in the home. It will be connected, and there already is the Internet of Things where your appliances are all connected. Your machines will be all talking to each other, but it will be well beyond what you do with Siri and Alexa, just asking for the temperature and who won the game and things like that, and turning on music. It would actually be your assistant. It would be your guide to what you need to do today. It would also be connected to a lot of other apps that you have to individually go to now. So if you want to order an Uber, you just say, hey, give me an Uber here in 15 minutes. Bring me pizza in 2 hours. And what movie should I watch? You don't have to go to each individual app. Your app has AI in a chip that's connected to all those apps. And these apps are all going to have to be AI enabled. The reason I mention all that is for us to get on that AI bandwagon, the builders are going to have AI friendly data and content. So not only can your houses speak to your buyers, but they have to speak to their buyers before the house is even built, because it's going to be guiding them throughout the entire customer journey and helping them bring in the real estate agent or the financing company or the insurance company. Throughout that process, unique AI experts will come in to help handhold you throughout that process.
Yeah, in my view, I think it's a very exciting technology. And first of all, I think we are very fortunate in this generation to see a few important shifts in the technology shaping our life. If you think about history, right? So I guess invention of fire, and then invention of agriculture. Now fast forward to invention of internal combustion engine. And then we get to live in the same generation to see the personal computing, internet, then mobile computing, then now
It's
AI
robots, smart robots.
in a single generation. So why this is exciting? If you think about how consumer leveraging computer, it actually changed how they interact with the business. When consumer change their way they interact with business, that means new opportunity for the business to meet the customer where they are. And that's what we think is very exciting about for home builder. Now it actually all of a sudden open up new opportunity for home building to engage in with consumer and organize their own workforce and coordinate to basically be more effective in building better homes for the market. I think in just a few years, we'll probably feel very different how we actually work and live every day. It will be very difficult to work without AI, just as if today we probably feel pretty normal in the 80s that I'm fine every day. But if you fast forward to today, it's very difficult to work without computer and internet. So I think that would be the same.
I think long term, we're all going to have an AI BFF, because that AI is going to know so much about you, probably more than your boss, your spouse, your kids, because everything's going to be on your smartphone. Who you contacted, where you've been, every photo you've taken, every conversation you've had, all that defines you. And who would have thought 10 years ago that we all be walking around with our phone to do everything on there and be connected with us day and night? The AI is now capturing all that in memory and then using that for every task and every next endeavor you do, whether it's business or travel or how to raise your kids.
I have a little slight different opinion. That's a very interesting one, John.
Mm-hmm.
However, I don't think AI would define us. It's more in a few years, not really talking about AI. It's much like we don't talk much about internet today.
Right,
It will
right.
be quite immersive
Ubiquitous.
in our lives, ubiquitous in our life. But on the other hand, I would say the successful AI company will be making sure that AI is actually an enabler to our life rather than letting it to define our life. That's a
I
slight difference.
agree. There's going to be this balance, and there's also the privacy issues, and there's also all these crazy deep fakes and all these things that the good can become bad very quickly. And I think one of the things, responsibilities I think both of us also share is that not only do we want to create a big tool, but we want to make sure that we create a tool and not a weapon. It's an enabler and not something that can manipulate you. So those are a lot of responsibilities that I think we share as CEOs, that we want to build something great, but not something that's greatly destructive.
Yeah. So that's why I feel actually incredibly fortunate to work in the home building industry, because there's a lot of potential risk in AI, but in home building industry, all I can say is just net positive. Because
Mhm.
actually one thing for the builders who your audience here, One thing unique about AI technology compared to many other previous computing technology is that a lot of time in the past, we have to learn how to use like we have to learn how to use PC. We need to learn how to use internet. I still remember teaching my mom, hey, you don't go to Yahoo catalog. You just need to ask Google anything. Then my mom asked, what should I ask? I don't have a question. But fast forward, AI, how is it different for home building industry is that it actually learn how we work and adapt to us. This is one technology that is not about we learn how to use the technology, is the technology learning how we operate and adapt to us. And that's what's exciting about AI.
I agree. We spent 2 decades trying to learn how to talk to a machine, and now the machine is learning to talk like humans and really sound like humans. It'll interrupt me just like we interrupt each other. It's going to be amazing.
Yeah. So as you guys think about your work, what is your personal definition of success, and what type of legacy do you hope to leave in both maybe AI space, tech space, and home building?
I think for me, success is actually a succession of failures. It's just knowing when to stop. I actually think when I used to have VC money, my first company, I raised $9 million and it's all about faster grow, hit the accelerator. Now I don't have that. You have that. Good. That's good for you, Will. But I've learned now, because I'm on my limited resources and limited time, the brakes and the steering wheel are super important to me. I do let my staff go and take little risks and explore in R&D, but that's all in-house. And there's a lot of failures out of those dozens of little scouting and R&D efforts. What I have to do then as the leader is saying, out of all those things, these 3 things succeeded. Which one do you want to take to market? And that's where I put my resources in. So I have to move quickly, but I also have to pivot quickly. But then once I figure out what I want to do, and this is where timing and positioning in the market is so important, then I know when to hit the accelerator. So I've actually failed many times, but nobody sees it.
So for me, success means be involved in something very significant and impactful. So that's actually very much the guide in my early stage of my career, why I worked for a big corporation in the past. But as I could progress in my career, I think actually I realized I want to do something different too. So success for me is meaning involving in a creation, something that is different, impactful, and meaningful. So as simple as that. What kind of legacy? I think if we are able to be part of a transformation, be part of being helpful to the home building industry, that's already very rewarding.
I guess for me as a legacy, a lot of people think I'm a pioneer and an innovator. I actually see myself as more of a survivor. I always look at the next paradigm. And so a lot of my competitors compete for the present day. It's how does T-Rex beat the Triceratops? I actually think the biggest competition is not the dinosaur age, it's the next age. So a lot of the things I'm building is for a war that hasn't been fought yet. So if there's a legacy, this sounds paradoxical. The best success of my legacy is 3 years after I'm gone, now in death, I'm retired, that everything I built, or most of the things that I built, have already been superseded. My steps in my journey are just like steps in the sand. If I built the platform and I hired the right people and the right vision, they will continue to innovate and supersede what I built as a foundation.
So speaking of the right people, I think that's a big question that a lot of entrepreneurs struggle with. So how do you find the right people for your team? And are there particular qualities that you look for when you hire an individual for your team?
Sure. So we were very lucky actually in the city we're in. It was an oil and gas industry, very traditionally. So a lot of very talented engineer here. They're not in the tech industry in the past, but then with the fluctuation volatility in the oil and gas industry, a lot of people are motivated to work on other industry. So we're very fortunate to really be one of the very hardcore tech company in town that basically be able to attract many top talent that we know in the city. And the other thing is actually also because of my past network and the people that I work with, so very exposed to the tech industry. And we have a beautiful city here. Calgary is basically you have 5 ski town here, so a lot of great talent. Like, this is a great place to live. Now, how do we find and attract the best talent is really about looking at people who are embracing what we value. Like I mentioned, like really be part of a very meaningful industry like housing to provide shelter, but willing to take on hardcore, difficult problems. We have a mantra basically to know the unknown. What drives us is actually like a strong curiosity to actually very curious about what's the other side of the curtain of unknown. And now once you know it, we want to engineer what the other people say is impossible. These two very interesting idea about like how do we overcome all these challenges is what attract the best people within a company.
Yeah, without repeating everything you said, I totally agree. I think we also look for people that are willing to take risks, but they also personally want to continuously improve, and they also want to continuously improve their staff, this company, their clients. That element and continuous improvement does not mean just doing the same old thing. It means like trying new things. And sometimes you're the sacrifice for that. But it also, I think, just even gets down to chemistry. It's just like elements in the periodic table here. Some elements go really well together. And it's like H2O, and some things will just cause a destructive explosion and it's toxic. First of all, I like for my leaders to almost be the oxygen in the room. They go well with the hydrogen. They really breathe life into things, like whether an idea or innovations, things like that. They really are creative, but then they also are able to attract people that also believe in the same thing. So we actually work as one big team, but we also work as very small individual teams. And it's bringing all those individual organic elements into one big body that I think that's where I'm as the head have to orchestrate that. But it's really all the individual pieces that really make it work, is bring it together that makes it really work for our clients.
So my next question is head versus heart. Business often it's talked about you have to be very logical to succeed, etc. My question to you is, do you believe in gut feeling, in intuition? And if so, do you follow your intuition very often, or do you tend to rely more on your logical self?
That's a great question. I would say in different times, you actually have to use different decision approach. Certainly intuition is super important. When in many difficult decisions, particularly in the startup world, so there's not enough information, particularly in the space that where we operate a lot of time when technology has never been done before. So we have to make a lot of gut intuition decision. The key about what we learn at the leadership team too is when we make gut intuition decision, we have to own the decision and we have to feel and take accountability on the outcome of the decision and then be fast follow up with what data we observe, what are the hypotheses we had, what are the observation we have. Does it validate or invalidate our decision first in the beginning? And then we double down on what we have made or what decision we have made, or do we say, okay, now we have new learning. So then we revise and inform to improve our decision. So in many key decisions we had to make was actually gut intuition in the beginning because there's simply no data. But then whenever we can, we will do what we can to apply a quantitative analysis, immediately follow up with that. So there's an interesting framework we use as well. It's called expected value framework. Is that you can think about, I can use an analogy. If you think about we go into the casino and then we play a simple game is to flip a coin, 50-50 opportunity of winning and losing, right? So then you can say, what's the cost of actually playing the game? And what's the expected outcome? Then we can multiply the probability and the expected value. And the key thing is actually is that a repeatable decision or not. So all these are, you can see it's a combination of intuition to initiate where we go in the direction and then quick follow up with the analytical approach to confirm if our understanding is correct. The goal is to minimize biases that we have in our own thinking.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I agree. As an entrepreneur, for me, to get started, because nothing exists yet and it's all crazy ideas, it's off my gut, off my intuition. a little bit from my own experiences, what I think consumer behaviors are, and I can see the pain points, and I can see where builders struggle. So there is some context, but then I do make that gut intuition move. But there is a stage here where, it has to have a return on investment. So then once I get to hit a certain milestone, I'm sure that it succeeds. Now I operationalize that. It's okay. I've conquered this, get teams here to make sure that continues to work. So now I can take that milestone, take the next step. So it's a little bit of back and forth, but I do make huge paradigm shift bets. And there's been basically four major paradigm shifts since I've been in this industry. Went from print to digital, and then digital to apps where you can interactively do things, and now to AI. Each one has been 6, 7 years in development. I think that's where I'm betting on. I have to build in advance of that. So if I fail, the whole house of cards collapses. And I know that sounds scary for anybody who works for me, but if it succeeds, then we're probably the only ones that are at that stage, because most people like to hold on to what they got as opposed to go deal or no deal and open the next briefcase.
Let's hope that pays off, John Lee. So now both of you come from immigrant families. You're first generation, John, I think you're second generation. Do you think that has contributed to your desire to start your own business and how you approach both risk and your maybe willingness to take on risk?
Definitely for me, my dad was well educated in Taiwan. Then he came over here and he had to start over, same with my mom. So they had to start out opening up a tailor shop and a dry cleaners just to get the business going. So I've learned a lot about entrepreneurship, hard work, and risk. If coming as an immigrant, here's the interesting related to innovation. I think a lot of people that have been doing something for a while, they're thinking within the box because they've been living in that box. I naturally come from outside the box because I was never part of the in crowd. So in one sense, I'm able to do something that they would never try to do because it's too risky for them to make that move. Whereas for me, it's an opportunity. And if I'm able to now bypass some of those obstacles, we're in the fast lane and they're in the slow lane because they have to do a U-turn. I lived in risk.
So for me, it's actually certainly very beneficial being an immigrant and live and grow up in different countries. It actually gave me a broad perspective of different human condition and how people live and how technology can really make a meaningful impact on people's life. That actually, I think, make every endeavor that or the pain and failure that we have to endure much more endurable. And when also making every step of success much more worthwhile for the celebration. Another really huge advantage as an immigrant is that we get to appreciate the true meaning about once someone say, now I know how things work, it's actually meaning that to stop learning. If we actually say, I actually don't know, if we actually stay very humble to ourselves, be honest with ourselves that maybe we don't know the full spectrum of things yet, that actually propel us to continue to actually getting a deeper understanding of different perspective, different culture, different background, and how different people think, and more important, where do they come from? And really have the willingness to appreciate where did they come from. I think that has been hugely rewarding in our whole business as well.
This is really a big thankfulness, a great to this country for me, is that it's given us a lot of opportunities without a ceiling. And Anya, you also came as an immigrant too, that you can see that you can start from basically nothing and overcoming those challenges. And then, which I like personally, is that once I overcome that, I feel more confident. And some people say, wow, that's so risky, that's so daring. I'm just like, this is an opportunity here. But I have a saying here is I love people that yearn to learn, and then they take what they learn to earn, and what they earn, they give as a return back to those who yearn.
I love
So
this.
that's my legacy, and what I want to continue is I'm at the end of what I can contribute, but it's not, but the beginning of what the next generation can do.
Speaking of next generation, what's the best advice you've ever received? And is there a piece of advice that you would give to somebody starting out their career right now? Maybe they want to start their own business.
So actually, my mentor who inspired me to be an entrepreneur, he actually had this. He had this mantra. His mantra is do well by doing good, and I think that actually extremely rewarding when we actually in difficult time we still have to stick to that, right? So a lot of things I'm sure John, you and I both in huge alignment with that in terms of using technology, but make sure privacy is respected. In terms of actually with all our clients, before they even care about data, we say you will retain your data ownership, right? So we educate the market that how important data as an asset, even though we actually invest heavily on that, even before our customer care about it a few years ago. Now today, all of a sudden, everyone would say this is hugely important. How do we think about privacy? How do we think about protection of the proprietary information for business, for builder? So I actually think the best advice I actually get and walk the talk is really do well by doing good. That has been tremendously rewarding. But next generation entrepreneur is you just need to sometimes just get started. You will figure it out, right? So it's all about that. You will figure it out.
Maybe in a
Started knowing what you know now about the road.
Would I have started? Yes. It has not been easy. There are a lot of sleepless nights. I'm sure, John, you know that, but it's been super rewarding as well. It's super meaningful. It also actually quite fulfilling to be able to work with the team that I have and be part of the amazing team that we're able to create together. I think that has been really, there's no regret over what we've been to achieve together.
Yeah, I really think it is a golden age for a lot of tech entrepreneurs here. When I first started out 20 some years ago, tech was a 4-letter word and it wasn't good. I think now it's a lot of opportunities, a lot of things that you can do on your own, whether you're learning from YouTube and you have AI assistants. There's actually an excitement around it, the marketplace, the consumers. In this industry, technology is accelerating at a faster pace than I've ever seen it. And I think it's coming out with some amazing things that 5, 10 years ago would never even be thought of, much less even possible. And I think if you are a tech entrepreneur, just from a business school standpoint, you really need to find an industry that one is huge, big. You don't want to just play in a little puddle here. You want to make a big impact, probably. You want to probably find an industry that's really fragmented. Like in this industry, there's 50,000 builders out there and there's no standard, there's no leader. So there's an opportunity to be the flagship. And then the other thing is look for industries that are very inefficient in the way they operate. And that's what, Will, you're attacking that from some of your predictive optimization AI. I see a lot with the whole customer journey and sales and marketing. So there's a lot of opportunities there that if you can make that much more efficient, and maybe because I've taken this other route of being bootstrapped instead of raising money, I'm very careful with my resources. I really believe that when you start out, build a very strong foundation, just like a house. That team that you get, make us a great foundational team that you can work with and respect and love and sacrifice for a long time. I've been with the same founders since day one, which is amazing. Make sure you're building a platform that will stand the test of time and that the people can build on. And then have that vision from the start, but be willing to shape that vision as the marketplace changes. So there's a little bit about stability, but also agility and a little bit of frugality.
And John, knowing what you know now, would you have started?
I would have started earlier because I would have learned programming. But all said and done, I have a great team. And I think I'm in the place here where I can hand the baton off. I'm not going to retire anytime soon, but I do know that my role and what I can take to this company is probably at a point here where if it gets to the next milestone financially, or as we finish out the customer journey, it may be somebody that can take it to the next level. But I do have a great executive staff here and that team can continue on. I'll just be on the board of directors and hopefully not be bored.
So as we wrap today's podcast, first question to you, is there anything that I did not ask you today that you think is important for our listeners to understand from today's discussion?
But I think in regard to AI, certainly I anticipate there will be more noise outside. For us in the industry, it's actually really think about what are the business priority? How do we actually be able to focus on operation efficiency and really build a better home and be a more profitable and sustainable business? One thing actually, a lot of discussion that was involved is about housing affordability, right? The lack of housing in general. But there's a lot of systematic limitation, systematic challenges that the industry is facing. If we are able to deploy AI, what it helps is actually to unlock the constraint that is no longer really be the constraint in the future. But the priority really is not about what's the next cool thing, shiny object. It's very much about what AI can really put it out there to improve your business in the bottom line. And I think that's actually where will be very helpful for the decision maker to understand how technology can transform the way that they work.
John, any last thoughts from you?
If you haven't started, you should at least start to learn about it. Find someone internally that can spearhead that, test out some things, maybe even get some of your clients or your vendors to be a pilot with you and handhold you through it, because I do think this will be a tough transformation for a lot of builders, because the systems, the processes, even the business models for the last 10, 20 years really hasn't changed much. And with AI, it's going to be a transformational change from top down throughout your organization. If you really want to work, it needs to be across the board. And if you don't make your AI, not just for your company, interact, and maybe if it's only siloed within your company and it's not connecting with other AI systems in a big macro world, it'll be like driving a car with a flat tire. It won't be stable. People won't like it. It won't go too far. So I think this is the time to really explore, find the right partners. That's where it's going. It's just a matter of time, and time is of the essence.
Can I touch a good point, John, you have there? I think it's actually for the industry, it's up to us tech entrepreneurs to advance the technology for the industry. But it's very important for us to have great partner, home building partner,
Right.
to be working with us to be able to transform the industry together. I think that's a very exciting future lie ahead of us.
We could build a platform, but we don't have the data. We want to create the right application so it's meaningful for the builder. We need that partnership. Otherwise, none of us go anywhere. So we all die together, but we can all win together.
We will win together.
We will win together.
If people want to learn more about OpenHouse AI and how they can potentially work with your company, what's the best way to connect with you? And also, if somebody wanted to connect with you personally, is there a place where you hang out on social media?
Yeah, absolutely. Just check us out on openhouse.ai. That's our website. And you can search on LinkedIn as well. And you can reach out to me. My email is will@openhouse.ai.
Perfect.
Where there's a will, there's a way.
Absolutely.
Sorry.
I'll include that in show notes. John, he knows where to find you at this point, but I'll also include that information. So thank you both so much for being on today's podcast. I think it's a different perspective that we brought to our listeners. Hopefully it was enjoyable for you guys to get a little bit of a different side. We're very techy, but I think my goal today was to give you a little bit of a glimpse of the man behind the technology that's driving home building industry today. So thank you so much for being with us today, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you. Bye-bye.